Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 244th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the MSP studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing great, Cameron. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well. NFL draft happened since we last spoke. I was trying to remember where I was going there.
Yeah, I could see the wheels turning.
Last week, after we recorded our episode, we just immediately watched the first round of the draft. So that was pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
Panthers grabbed Bryce Young. I love that as a Panthers fan. I feel like I'm comfortable with that. I'm confident in his abilities. I would have been fine with, there was, rumors previously about CJ Stroud and everything. And like Anthony Richardson just rocketing up the draft boards. I thought maybe that was a chance, but I was pretty sure they were locked into Bryce Young, and I was happy to see it.
Yeah, I think Bryce Young's the most safe choice. He's the franchise guy for sure. It made a lot of sense. But the first round of the draft was really fun, and it was kind of crazy just seeing the Texans, take CJ Stroud second overall, and then just immediately trading back into the third overall pick to take Will Anderson was pretty nuts. And just from a fan perspective, just trying to enjoy the chaos of it all. I thought it was a pretty fun draft, and there was like a record amount of trades from the whole draft entirety. So I think there was like 43 trades or something like that. So very entertaining, good stuff.
Yeah, I want to talk more about that. Let me tell everybody what this episode is going to be about. We're going to talk NFL draft. We're going to talk about Isaiah McGuire and football recruiting, basketball transfer portal, Kobe Brown update. We've got a lot to discuss. Before we get into all of it, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, leave us a review wherever you listen to us, and of course you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod. So NFL draft, it was kind of crazy. It felt like video game trading or like fantasy football trading.
Yeah, they were not worried about the consequences. They just were gonna get their guys and figure it out later.
Yeah, and I don't know. I kind of like that. Spice it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. Maybe the most fun element of the whole first night was Will Levis and his descent to the second round. I mean, I don't think anybody really saw that coming that specifically. I think some people are lower on Will Levis and thought that there's no way he gets picked in the top five.
I was lower on him than you, just purely from me being a hater. And even I was like, okay, this is getting out of hand. Somebody pick this guy.
It's just getting out of hand, out of pocket.
Yeah.
I mean, after he got past like 15 or something like that, it was like, I think he's going second round because none of these teams need quarterbacks unless somebody trades up.
But there's almost like no reason to. Everybody passed on him once, so it's like, is anybody going to be super eager to jump back in here and grab him?
Yeah, so it was just so ironic. I saw an interview with Will Levis that was obviously filmed before the draft where people were asking him if he was going to attend the draft in Kansas City. And he said he didn't know yet, but was only going to attend the draft if he knew he was going to go in the top like 10, 15 picks, because he specifically did not want to be the guy that was like on the camera all night and everything. So
I did not hear that.
Which is exactly what happened. So It was...
Who was telling him that he was going?
Probably the teams. I mean, they got us, I don't know, like they're smoke screening probably the prospects themselves because the prospects talk and they got to keep things close to the vest.
Sure. I guess, I mean, if you're the team,
you know. Brutal, though, just to know that people are... Well, I don't know. Some of the teams were probably telling him, like, if this happens, we're taking you. And it just didn't go the way that... It just didn't roll out for him.
One of those teams told him, if this happens, we're taking you. And then that happened, and they didn't take him. I feel like.
Maybe so.
Yeah. So he ended up going in the second round to the Titans.
Yep.
And so, I don't know. They're trying again already on a new rookie quarterback, I guess.
Yeah, they just keep... Every year they get a new one.
I was kind of like, I don't know. I went through a roller coaster of emotions where I was like, he's dropping, to like, oh, I feel bad for him. This is a real life person they keep showing.
I think exactly. I think I saw if he were to have been picked like where a lot of people thought he was going to, which was like 4th overall to the Colts. I think he lost $20 million from getting picked to fourth to wherever he got picked, like 34th overall or something.
Jeez.
So that's a lot of money that he lost, and everyone got to watch him realize it.
Yeah. And some people out there were telling him that he was going to be getting that. Anthony Richardson, though, like the draft came at the perfect time for him where he was at peak hype and peak value in everybody's mind.
Yeah.
So that'll be kind of exciting to see. Isaiah McGuire, though, Missouri Tigers, selected by the Cleveland Browns in the 4th round of the NFL draft.
Yeah, I think it's a nice landing spot for Isaiah McGuire, kind of right in that range of where we thought he would go. Gonna reunite with Jordan Elliott on the defensive line in Cleveland. So obviously a familiar name that had a couple of really good seasons at Mizzou a few years back. So that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, happy for Isaiah, and I think that'll be a good opportunity for him to get in there quite a bit, probably right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, in some of the post-draft coverage that I saw about him specifically, it seemed like people were liking this pick by the Browns. That's good to see. I never really know for sure. Like the same thing happened. I wasn't really sure about Nick Bolton. I knew that I was in love with him as a not Chiefs fan, as a Mizzou fan.
There it was.
No. Scratch it from the record. I knew I was in love with him as a Mizzou fan, but then seeing that was kind of an interesting one where people were a little bit skeptical. I think Chiefs fans liked that pick, but some of the overall NFL coverage was still questioning like his size and stuff.
Yeah, from a national viewpoint, those guys are looking at measurables and tape, obviously, but they didn't know he had that dog in him.
Exactly.
And we knew.
Yeah.
So, which I will not even lie, Nick Bolton has been 10 times better than I even thought he was going to be, and I thought he would be a good player. So
I thought he would reach this level, but I didn't necessarily think it would happen so quickly.
Yeah. I mean, he's like one of the best linebackers in the NFL.
Yeah. And I feel like with McGuire, though, it's kind of the opposite, where like he maybe doesn't have the production in college that would make NFL teams go crazy, but his measurables are like, oh yeah, we can work with that.
Yeah, just very well balanced. All like pretty measurables and production both were just solid.
So he was the only Missouri Tiger drafted, but Martez Manuel signed an undrafted free agent deal with the Kansas City Chiefs, so he gets to stay local. And DJ Coleman signed with the Jaguars.
Yeah, statistically, it's just pretty unlikely that either one of these guys are going to make the team, but not getting drafted. But it's still cool to see, and sometimes all you need is an opportunity. So we'll be watching them, and they'll get a shot during preseason for sure.
Yeah, it's fun. I like it when there's a Mizzou player or two that you can kind of follow during the preseason and see what they're doing, see them get some snaps. If I was an undrafted free agent, got to play in an NFL preseason game, I would still consider myself an NFL player.
Still a success.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll count any Mizzou player that sets foot on an NFL field in an NFL uniform.
Hashtag Mizzou made.
Exactly. In less good news for Mizzou football, we got a transfer out of the program in defensive end Arden Walker. Defensive end? Is that where he was playing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Arden Walker, he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. I think this is one that surprised some people. Probably, I guess myself included, just because, at least from an outside perspective, it looked like he was well situated for some playing time and was kind of an up and comer a little bit, and had played well in his earlier years. So I definitely thought that he could even potentially be the starter at defensive end. So this is a little surprising. Hopefully that it's he was getting met with a little bit more competition for the starting spot than he expected. But there's just who knows. Everybody leaves for different reasons. Yeah.
So I feel like watching the discourse on Twitter and like even in our Discord and things, the conversation quickly changed from Arden Walker is leaving to another player from the 2021 recruiting class is leaving, and that has been a little bit of a trend, and it's got some people worried. So I thought we should talk about that a little bit, specifically 2021 football recruiting class. So these are guys that would be juniors or redshirt sophomores. Mm-hmm. Going into this coming season. And like off the top of my head, Travion Ford. If you go on, I'm on 24/7 Sports. He's the top guy on the list. 217th nationally, 4-star player. No longer with Mizzou. And you go down this list, and there's lots of guys that have left, and I think people are a little bit nervous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a complicated situation, and there's a lot of layers to this. But I would say that I'm probably both a little bit concerned, but also if you take a deeper dive, there's reasons to just to not freak out about it. But yeah, from just a from a holistic standpoint, yes, there's a lot of bodies that are gone from that class. There are probably a couple of names that have been pretty big hits to the team and are big losses. But really, at the same time, you're really, high school recruiting is such a crapshoot. You are just trying to hit on as many guys as you possibly can, but you could probably only realistically expect to hit on 8 or 10 guys every class of guys that will, stick around for multiple years and make an impact and help you win games. It's just not a great hit rate. And so I think if you probably went down the list individually in the 2021 class, there's definitely some big names like Dominic Lovett. That was a huge recruiting win, was really good, and then is not in the program anymore. So obviously that hurts.
Makai Wingo.
Makai Wingo is a big loss for sure. So yeah, there's definitely some bummers in there, but ultimately I think that there's still a lot of talent that's still here, and there's probably a lot of names on that list that just weren't moving the needle at all.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can't help but, like we've talked about many times on this show, and I think Mizzou fans kind of understand where the program fits in the college football landscape. And we've talked about how getting players into the system from the state or, like fringe 4-star guys, but a lot of 3-star players, developing them over 3 and 4 years, and then supplementing that with maybe like a 5-star, a high 4-star guy every once in a while, and then, hitting on guys in the transfer portal. You can make all of that come together and have a really successful team doing that. And that's outside of, when you're not a program that's going to get the top transfers every year and the top players out of high school every year, you have to rely on a mix of all 3 of those things. And it feels like, again, we'd have to like really crunch the numbers. And we talked about before we started recording, maybe we'll go back between now and next week and look at some of these recruiting classes and try to actually do the math and see what's going on. But maybe it's not as alarming as it seems, but it feels like the development of these 3-star guys, and it's just not there like we would want it to be.
Yeah.
I mean, we're hitting on some recruits and they're turning into solid players. Like I'm looking at the list right now, Dalen Carnell is right there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's was a 3-star recruit, and he's going to be awesome. He's already been awesome, going to continue to be awesome for Mizzou.
Right.
But man, I don't know. Am I crazy that?
No, not at all. To be crazy at all. To be concerned, and because there's almost 3 buckets that you can put players into now. It's the recruits that didn't work out, and maybe they left, or maybe they're still here on the bottom of the depth chart. There's players that hit and stayed, but now you've kind of introduced this new angle where like a Dominic Lovett or a Makai Wingo, where it's like players that hit and then immediately leave once they have proven that they can play at a high level.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we've seen a little bit of that. I think we've gotten some good players in return in the transfer portal, but it's just really, really hard to replace some in-state guys that immediately hit.
Yeah, and I mean, just you saying that, I'm like, yeah, okay, I need to separate Travion Ford from Makai Wingo. Those are not the same situation in their departure from Missouri.
Right.
Dominic Lovett departing is not the same as Tyler Macon departing. Like these were all guys in the top 10 of this 2021 recruiting class, and it sucks to lose any of them, but Dominic Lovett and Makai Wingo were guys that Missouri coaches recruited and got to sign and were excellent players.
Right. Yeah, so it is kind of easy to cherry pick like from a recruiting standpoint and also just a development standpoint, because I think it's easy to say, well, look at these guys that are still here. They haven't really developed. But there's been some players that immediately, like, we knew they were good. We went out and got them, and they've developed. And unfortunately, the part we can't control, they've moved on to other places. So I think this coaching staff, I think there's questions, absolutely. And am I sold on Coach Trinkwitz and the staff right now? No, not necessarily. But I don't think I'm ready to jump ship and just panic either. It's a really complicated situation with a lot going on. And unfortunately, a coach at Missouri is probably going to have to work a little harder than a coach at a higher level for some of this stuff. It just is not as easy to get and hold on to guys.
It'll be interesting to see where Arden Walker ends up, because he feels like kind of in between, like the Travion Ford, Tyler Macon situation, and then Levitt Wingo. He feels kind of like in between there. I don't know.
Yeah, he could. I think he's from Colorado. I think he could probably end up at Colorado, and they've had a massive departure of players, but they're also now taking a lot of players. So that could have been a reason that he left. Maybe he felt like he could go home and play for the home school. I have no idea. But yeah, I think it would be really interesting to go back the last 5, 10, or even farther back recruiting classes and really analyze like how many players are we actually hitting on every class, and the players that we are hitting on or aren't hitting on, what's happening after that? Are they leaving? Where are they going? I think it'd be cool to just kind of dig it.
Yeah, we might have to dive into that a little bit. Yeah, Colorado. I don't know if you want to go into that mess right now if you're a player or anybody.
Yeah. It seems like a pretty unstable situation.
And I've seen people saying like, no, actually, this is what happens everywhere. This is just getting different coverage. And, Deion Sanders himself is sort of inviting this a little bit of scrutiny by how he's going about it. But
probably not quite to this level.
No, I agree. But I don't doubt that name a program. And if you saw... if you were in the room when some of this goes down with players leaving and stuff, you'd be like, oh, this is not as fun as I'd like. I don't really want to be watching this. This is not a fun time.
Yeah, they're always going to spin it like we're just weeding out the guys we don't want and we're getting a new talent and that kind of stuff. But it would be interesting just to be a fly on the wall for some of those internal meetings where they have 50 guys that have left.
Yeah.
And they're got to be thinking like, what do we do?
Yeah.
Where do we turn next? But
I feel like...
I kind of just have faith that they'll figure it out.
I kind of feel that way too. Maybe that
might not be this year.
No,
but
that might be a little naive. But I don't know. I think some people think that Deion has really walked into a situation that he wasn't ready for. But there's no way to know that until 2 or 3 years from now. All right, let's get back on track here. Where were we? So Arden Walker is gone. We're going to do some investigating, try to figure out what's going on there. Are we stopped developing guys or not? Find out next week.
Gonna have to build a model.
Yeah, exactly. I'll have to run it through an algorithm. We'll have AI do it for us.
Do some linear regression.
Anything else football related before we switch gears here?
I don't think so.
So, let me see what order I want to do this. New addition to the basketball team, Jesus Carralero, a 6'8" forward from Campbell University, has committed to Coach Gates from the transfer portal. 1 year of eligibility, spent all 4 seasons at Campbell. Jesus Carralero.
Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, this is a weird one to me, at least. I can't lie that whenever we saw that bat signal, I was thinking, here we go. We're not really in on very many guys anymore at this point. There's only so many guys this could be. I didn't even know that Jesus was announcing the day that he did. So it was like the bat signal went out, and then after that, like between the bat signal going out and him announcing, I saw this other tweet that like, hey, this guy's going to be announcing today Missouri's a finalist. I was like, oh, it's going to be this dude, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it was.
Well, let me cheer you up a little bit. Because this was not a high-profile transfer, obviously. But I watched some highlights and dug into his player profile a little bit. And I think this is maybe a sneaky good addition. I don't think we're looking at a starter necessarily, but I think we're looking at a really nice depth piece who is very versatile and is the type of player that Coach Gates is looking for. He's a really good playmaker at 6'8", definitely he is a stretch 4, stretch 5, undersized stretch 5, something like that in college basketball. But from that position, gets a lot of assists and some really, really good passing into the post from like the elbow area. Really good passing to cutters from the perimeter. He can grab a defensive rebound, bring the ball up, and initiate the offense. It looks good doing it. Can stretch the floor, can knock down a 3, can finish at the rim. I think he's not going to blow you away in any one category or trait, but I think he's solid and very versatile, and I think he will be able to fill different gaps. And if Missouri's wanting to get out and run again, or even more than last year, I think he will fit that mold of like a guy who can play the 5 spot, but is still super mobile and keeps the ball moving on offense.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm hating on him too much here, because there were some things that really impressed me when I watched this film. Like you said, I immediately noticed that. I was like, wait, am I watching the right guy? Because he's 6'8" and he's also the point guard.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was bringing the ball up, and he was super crafty, like just excellent passing. Which obviously we're watching the highlights, so nothing goes wrong in the highlights. But
the one I saw, he was playing against Duke.
Yeah.
And looked like obviously the best player on Campbell.
Yeah.
And was like making plays.
Yeah, really good vision and really just a noticeably great passing. So yeah, he looks like a guy who can kind of set some screens and make things interesting for sure.
Good pick and pop on the perimeter too, setting a ball screen and then popping out for a 3.
Yeah, which we love. We know Coach Gates loves that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't mean to insinuate that you were downplaying it. It's just like...
I kind of was.
Everybody was like, well, when you're going from thinking this might be Matthew Cleveland announcing to...
That's the only reason why.
Then it's like, oh, that's not what I was looking for.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, solid addition.
Yeah, I think a sneaky good addition for sure.
Yeah, I think he averaged like 10 points a game at Campbell.
I can't remember.
And I don't know.
Yeah.
4 or 5 assists.
He barely played last year, was injured most of the year, only played in like 4 games. But he was, in those 4 games, he was headed for a pretty solid season. Had made a 3 in every game, was shooting, above 55% from 2. And he does turn the ball over a little too much just because at Campbell, he was a very high usage player. A lot of possessions ended with the ball in his hand. So that accounts for a lot of his assists, but then also he was turning the ball over a little too much. Another guy to keep tabs on a little bit is West Virginia transfer Jimmy Bell. He is 6'10", 285, and he will be visiting Missouri on May 10th. Played 2 seasons at St. Louis before spending a year at Moberly Area Community College. Then 1 year at West Virginia, has 1 year of eligibility remaining. And this Jimmy Bell, excellent rebounder, didn't play a ton at St. Louis. Played actually quite a bit his freshman year, but then not a whole lot his sophomore year, then transferred. And then at West Virginia, started all 34 games last year, was barely used on offense. So he was almost like a rebounding and post-defense specialist. But still fairly efficient when he did get a chance. Good finish at the rim, obviously 6'10", big body. Gets to the free throw line pretty well and has made 63% of his free throws in his career.
Yeah. Again, this is probably not an addition if he were to commit, which I think you did say he is visiting Missouri. So if he were to commit, this wouldn't be an addition that blows the doors off of your expectations for the season or anything like that. But absolutely, there is a role for someone to come in and play good defense down low and clog up the middle and get rebounds. So that's definitely something that we have been looking for in the transfer portal, probably pretty desperately, and it just hasn't worked out. So I would say if Bell wants to come, there's a pretty good chance we're going to take him.
Yeah, I agree. And I wouldn't mind it one bit. We need to add some size. Now, maybe...
some toughness, right?
Toughness?
That's what West Virginia players, that's what they do.
But he transferred away from West Virginia.
Oh, that's
so
true.
maybe it was
Couldn't
too
handle
tough. Who knows? They would like to think so. Anybody that transfers away from West Virginia,
it's not tough enough.
Just guaranteed not tough enough.
Can't play for Bobby Huggins.
Yeah. But keep an eye on that. Jimmy Bell visiting on the 10th, and then probably going to decide where he's going to play his last year. Not too long after that. We did get an update from a former Missouri Tiger, Ronnie DeGray, has committed to Wichita State out of the transfer portal. So kind of an interesting landing spot for him.
Yeah.
But you mentioned, I didn't even realize this, Chris Hollander, who was a former assistant at Missouri under Conzo Martin, is at Wichita State. So there's that connection there. Bring Ronnie DeGray over. Good luck to Ronnie. You think it's a good fit over there at Wichita State?
Yeah, I guess. I liked Ronnie DeGray a lot. I thought he seemed like a good guy, and he always played hard and kind of did the dirty work nobody else wanted to do. So I'm happy for him, and that seems like a pretty good landing spot.
Yeah, probably didn't get enough credit for some solid performances at Mizzou. And then I have an update on one Kobe Brown. I'm calling this an update.
A substantial update.
Yeah, just some hard-hitting information here. Really going to blow everybody's mind. Kobe Brown, not sure if he's coming back to school or not.
Okay, good to know.
But he was asked by the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, what would it take for him to return? And he said, quote, just if I'm not drafted or if I'm not somewhere in a position where I'm guaranteed anything. So
somebody want to make sure Kobe knows that if he goes to the draft or puts his name in the draft, he can't return to school after that.
Yeah, so that's the thing.
We want to make sure he knows that.
Somebody let him know, but I'm going to try to just infer here that if he gets feedback from, it is a little bit different with him when he sort of went through the draft process as an underclassman. There's something called like the Underclassmen Draft Advisory Board or something that gives you feedback, and then you decide based on that. So I guess it's a little bit different when you're a senior. I'm not exactly sure. But so he has until the end of May to be gathering all this information. And at some point, he's going to be told, we think you're going to go in the first round, and that comes with a guaranteed salary of X, or we think you're going to go in the second round, and this team likes you well enough to sign you to a deal right away, or we think you're going to go in the second round, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like any teams are going to sign you to a guaranteed deal of any kind, and you're going to have to earn a 2-year contract in the preseason. So the latter scenario there it sounds like that is the type of thing that would bring him back to Mizzou. And I think he's right on the line between the second and third scenario that I lined out there.
Yeah. Like truly, I think like anything's in play for what could happen for Kobe.
Yeah, and he was asked in the same interview, what can he say about what he's hearing? He said he's hearing a lot of good things. He's not allowed to disclose details, but he's happy with what he's hearing so far, and we're just going to have to wait and see.
Is there any chance, now I'm not sure exactly how these timelines work up or kind of align here, but is there any chance a Matthew Cleveland announcement is tied to a Kobe Brown announcement, or is that just like really looking at it with Mizzou perspective way too much?
Maybe so. It feels like Matthew Cleveland would not want to wait until the end of May to.
That's probably how long it would have to be, most likely.
I think
before
so.
We know.
Yeah, I really think so. I think with Kobe, I don't expect anything until the last minute. And because there's no downside for him to wait until he gets as much information as possible before making a decision.
Yeah.
I doubt that Matthew Cleveland wants to wait that long.
Yeah.
And if another team is, let's just imagine that like Mizzou, he wants to come to Mizzou, but we're saying, we kind of need to know what Kobe's doing. If there's another team out there that's like in the top 2 or 3, that's like, actually, we like you just as much and we'll take you now.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been from Mizzou's perspective. It would probably be more like him thinking if Kobe comes back, then I don't know
Okay.
if I really want to do this.
I follow.
But I don't know that either one of those perspectives is realistic whatsoever. But yeah, so I'm sure that his decision has nothing to do with Kobe, and that timeline probably doesn't really align anyway.
Yeah, it does. There's a little bit of positional overlap though, but I don't know. If you with the addition of Carralero and then you bring in Matthew Cleveland, that's like, okay, I guess that would be like we are committing to small ball, run as much as we can.
Fine with me.
And it's arguable. Like, let's just say, we've added Carralero in a fantasy scenario. Matthew Cleveland comes and Kobe comes back or doesn't. That part doesn't really matter. I feel like we're more equipped to run a fast-paced game with that squad than we were at the beginning of last year.
It's very possible. I think Demoy Hodge is like the quintessential player
that's
for
a good point.
Up and down basketball.
Yeah.
On both ends of the floor. But yeah, I think that I don't know that we would really lose much of a step necessarily, though.
Yeah, it feels like we'd be losing a little bit from the guard position, but then gaining more of a system fit in the post.
Exactly. By the way, Matthew Cleveland, it sounds like he really is kind of down to Missouri and Miami. Sounds like the two schools that I've heard the most that he's kind of down to. Sounds like Miami's willing to throw a lot of money his way, though. So we'll see.
Well, and that's another thing. It feels like with NIL dollars, again, who knows how this actually works, but it seems like what Kobe did mention in that same interview that NIL money is not really playing a factor, is what he said. He said that if he comes back to Mizzou, it'll be because he loves Mizzou and just wants to play another year.
That's probably not great.
What do you mean?
Like, I was going to say, I thought NIL was like the thing that was going to bring him back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's saying, basically, don't worry about the money. If I don't like, that doesn't matter. If I either like my NBA draft prospects or I don't. If I don't, I'm coming back.
That's the bottom line, though.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters other than what he hears back.
But I feel like him and Matthew Cleveland and Isaiah Mosley would maybe all be in the conversation of if you've got X amount of NIL dollars, how are you splitting that up? So that may be
Surely
more.
We've got some rich people out there, right? Like, are we really divvying it up? We're that worried about it?
If you're out there, send some of it our way. Patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod.
Exactly what I was meaning by that. But I mean, that I won't argue with that either. Like, somebody's got some money out there. We can pay Matthew Cleveland, right?
Yeah, I think so. Not as much as Miami, though. I tell you that.
Apparently not.
Yeah,
They got that endless stream.
yeah. Miami poured so much money into their program from NIL that they went to
made
the
them
Final
good.
Four. Yeah. Funny how that works. Yeah, so we're still a long haul here with
Open and
Kobe.
praying.
Yeah, and who knows? There may be another sneaky portal edition between now and next week. Maybe Matthew Cleveland will make an announcement. No date or anything there, right? Not that I've heard.
No, I mean, I honestly kind of feels like we're time's ticking at this point, is what it feels like.
Yeah, feels like it should happen any day now.
Getting late in the ball game.
Oof. I'm a little nervous. All right. Anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
I guess not.
All right. Come back next week. We're going to really explain Mizzou football recruiting. It's going to be an exact science. And then that'll inform us on whether or not Missouri will be good in the next 2 or 3 years. That's how that works, right?
Actually, yeah.
We're just going to add up the number of stars total.
Yeah.
And that will tell us. All right. How do we end this? Special thank you to our Patreon supporters at the $10 level and above: Britt Treese, Brian Smith, Ryan Demore, Tristan, Ben Smith, Parker, Daddy JD, Tim Keens, Tyler Harsel, Brandon Garofalo, Brandon Hanks, Matthew Tilley, and Cooper Boyer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. You can find this podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're on Twitter at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
You can find our t-shirts and stickers on our online shop, MissouriSportsPod.bigcartel.com.
Thank you everyone for listening. We will see you next week. Bye.